Hey, how you doing? Today on the podcast, I'm bringing in CEO and co-founder at MTN OPS, Trevor Farnes. He's also the author of the new book, The Conquer Code, a challenge to awaken the divine. Trevor, how you doing?
Doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you, man. I just want to start, my whole thing is about purpose. So what is your
Awesome.
purpose?
Such a good question. And I've been thinking about that lately, and in different realms of life, I might have a different purpose, but I think I can almost wrap it up into one statement, which is to awaken the divine within individuals that God has allowed me to come in contact with in life. And to not kind of compartmentalize that into different purposes of life or different segments. I really can kind of just bring it into that one and say that's what I try to do with my children in our home. It's what I try to do with the people I work with here at MTN OPS, my team members, with the customers that we work with. If I can help to bring about in their life some of the gifts and the qualities that God has given them, then I feel like I'm doing the purpose that God on a spiritual level that I feel he wants me to do in this life. And so I'm a faith-based individual, and if I could kind of put it into one statement, it would be that just awaken the divine within individuals.
That's really cool. Can you explain a little bit to somebody maybe who isn't super faith-based? What does it mean to awaken the divine?
And I believe that all of us come to this earth with divine qualities, with talents, gifts, and responsibilities. And sometimes it's difficult with all the confusion, with all the noise of life to and a lot of times it's the comparison of life you see on social media and everything, what everyone's doing and how they're doing it. And you think, man, you compare your worst day to their best on social media. And so sometimes it's hard for people to understand, who am I? What am I about? Just like you just asked me, what's your purpose? It's hard for people to understand that at times. And whether they're faith-based or not, they can recognize the gifts within them as having been divinely created, or just like each of us have divine qualities or qualities and talents and abilities, and sometimes people just need somebody to tell them, hey, here's what I see in you, here's the good that you have. And whether they recognize that that comes from God or not, it doesn't really matter. I think that if they can ultimately recognize that, there's blessings that come from that knowledge. But just people feeling good about who they are, the talents they've been given, the gifts they have, and how they might be able to even contribute those in life to the betterment of their lives and the lives of others. I that's how I see it. So
Yeah, I love it. That's great. And as you say, whether you are a Jesus follower or not, or whether you believe in God or not, it's a universal that everybody feels something inside that they were put here for a reason. It's I believe why
yeah,
the number one question everybody struggles with is, why am I here? What
yeah,
is the point of it all, right? And I'm a Jesus follower, and man, I go back to Ecclesiastes where Solomon's talking about how eternity has been placed in the human heart, right? And there's nothing that can fill that except Jesus for me. For
yeah,
other people, whatever the divine is for your life. And you've got to be able to tap into that to be fully alive and to experience the joy that you were meant to have. And to me, it's by looking at, okay, if I do believe there's a higher power than myself, and I was created with talents and gifts and desires, and I believe Jesus wants me to grow those to help other people, then I've got to figure out what that is. That's my calling. Is I've got, and the way to
100%.
do that is to turn to him. For us, it would be to turn inside of the Holy Spirit and let him guide you. For other
Yeah.
people, it would be at least to try to tune into that higher power, whatever you believe it is, so that you can be living your life on purpose. Who wants to live a purposeless life? Even if you
Yeah.
have no belief in God whatsoever, you got to believe you have a purpose, or that's got to be a pretty empty existence, I would think.
100%. I completely agree. And so I mean, if you can help one individual do that, first and foremost, doing it for yourself and finding that purpose, that passion, a connection. My life has been all about connection, and it's been connection to family, it's been connection to team members here, most importantly, a connection to God. And so that, most importantly, he being my priority, when I think of him, I think celestial. And so then that it becomes my perspective in life. Or you said eternities, you think of it that way. And then everything that happens to you or for you in life, you try to apply it that way. And that's where, okay, these divine qualities, these divine perspectives, that our eyes are open. If we can think celestial, think eternal, then everything in life begins to take on a little bit more meaning, and the progress in life starts to happen. And today it's a little better today than yesterday. Tomorrow it's a little better tomorrow than today. And that's an eternal progression for me. And I'm thinking celestial that way. It's not going to happen today, but today I can be a little bit better than yesterday. And that's honestly what Mountain Ops is all about. Our company here, it's that eternal progression, but taking it one day at a time, little bite-sized pieces, and one step at a time on this journey of 1,000 miles. It takes one single step, but those steps need to be directional as well. And that's why I think if you can look to the divine, look to the qualities you're given, and have a destination in mind, whether it's within a goal setting atmosphere at work, or whether it's a spiritual setting on for your eternities, like the directional steps we take in life that are intentional towards that destination are so important. Not just making decisions, but making directional decisions and steps.
Yeah. And then when you start taking those steps, if you're on a really good, purposeful path, every one of those steps can bring joy with it. You don't have to wait till some future date with some goal that you set that's 20 years from now. You can have joy in every step because you're on your life's path that you were designed for. I think it's so countercultural, because we hear so much. I just want to get rich. I want to start my own company. I want to do this, I want to do that. And all those things could be great. But I've found, and I think most people find, and I'll go to Ecclesiastes again, that Solomon found, he tried all the riches in the world, all the women in the world, all the decadence in the world, everything he could think of. And he's like, man, this is like chasing the wind. This is all vanity. Yeah. And then he said, but if I'm doing everything for a bigger purpose, if I was doing everything for God or whatever it is that you feel is your bigger purpose, then there's nothing better than to enjoy the toil of every day. And because it means something and it matters, and and you're in line with what you're supposed to do. And that's why I think it's so countercultural, because so many people are looking for that quick get rich scheme, or that business that's going to make them $1 billion or whatever. And so many people get there and they realize, this is it. I don't feel like I thought I was going to feel. Whereas if you get in line with that path, then you can feel this joy every day, because you wake up like you are, Trevor, saying, okay, I'm going to help one person awaken the divine today while I do everything else I'm doing that also helps people do that. And then you can just be excited about everything you're doing. It's something that's part of my purpose, is just try to get people to understand the joy that comes with that, the benefits for you and for others. It's almost like we were designed that way, to maybe help others, and all of a sudden you come alive. It's awesome.
I love the word joy that you're using. It's actually this last year we had 9 core values of Mountain Ops, and then we added 3 more. It sounds like a lot of core values, right? We both came from a conference together where they talked about the black sheep values and narrowing them down to 5. We've got 12. We have one for every month. And the one that we added in for the month of December for this year is joy. And I've taken all the core values that my parents have taught me in life as a child for my foundation, everything, and I put them in place that way. My mom always, her favorite word is joy, and she always used it as an acronym: Jesus, others, yourself, kind of in that order, and having him be the priority. Then you look to others to serve him as Jesus would have you, and then you work on yourself as well. But and through that you find joy. And there's a quote that we put inside of our statement for our core value that goes something like this. It's the joy we feel in life has nothing to do with the circumstances of our life and everything to do with the focus of our life. And so you can be going through some of the hardest of hard times, or struggling to figure out what your purpose is and whatnot, or everything in life could be happening to you. And those are circumstances that we're all going to face, but you can still feel joy, just like you're stating. And that's if your focus is on the right things. And really, my mom's acronym had nothing to do with numbers or wealth or finance. It had everything to do with just focusing on loving individuals the way that Jesus Christ taught us to, and then joy is experienced. And so I love that that's a word you just brought up, because it's super meaningful for me and my foundational experience as a child, but now finding joy in my journey every single day of life. And it's sometimes can be hard. There's distractions, there's difficulties, but those don't need to deter me away from the divine feeling of joy that I feel God wants us to feel in this journey.
That's so good. A friend of mine said the problem with happiness is it's based in happenings, and you can't control all of the happenings. But the great thing about joy is you can have joy in all circumstances. If you're talking along the lines of what we're talking about today. So I just think that that's so cool. So tell me the story of how you found your purpose.
It's interesting I found my purpose within business at a certain point. I could say, okay, this was the moment, but I feel like that purpose of awakening the divine, it like kind of naturally grew as I grew up, and the different things I was taught, and in the household that I grew up in, it was taught that way. And so it's just kind of naturally something that grew and grew as you mature over time. You're like, okay, I want to do more for people to help them understand their true identity in life, and to find joy in that, and to find peace in that, to find confidence. But then, within business, there was a time where my father needed some help. And from a health perspective, he had a few stents put in his heart. He had the doctors tell him, you'll have open heart surgery in 5 years, very bad neuropathy, very poor circulation. His dad died of a heart attack. My other grandfather died of a stroke. So we had a history of heart disease in my family. And during that time, I was just coming off of multiple business failures, feeling pretty down on myself, wondering about my potential, not necessarily my divine potential, but can I succeed? Can I provide? I was a young husband, young father at the time, trying my wings, and I felt like my responsibilities were to provide, preside, and protect. And for a period of time, I felt like I did a great job. I was prepping for this, and then we went off on our own, and all of a sudden these failures hit, and I felt like, man, I don't know if I'm very good. I don't know what to do. But I found some purpose in helping my father, and it became something that just drove me. I read a book that talked about how to produce nitric oxide in the body, which is a signaling molecule to dilate the blood vessels and arteries. It was exactly what my father needed at the time. They were trying to do this with putting the stents in his heart, and that helps to keep him from having a heart attack and to increase blood flow. But he needed more additional help, and I found a way to create a product, put him on it, and then I felt like, okay, here's part of my purpose within business. But there was so much more to it than that. I was providing a product that allowed my father to live and to contribute in life with his divine qualities, and to awaken that divine in him, to just live and to experience life in a meaningful way, and to not be worrying about the health issues that were kind of keeping him from some of those things. And then I started to do that with multiple people, through doctors' offices, their patients, through different customers. And so I found purpose in helping them with health issues that would allow them kind of the freedom and the ability physically to do things that they would want to do in life, to contribute in those divine ways that they might feel like they should. And so that was one of those instances where it like took me in a trajectory within business that allowed me to apply that purpose. But those purposes came from just years and years of great parenting by my parents, great siblings. I'm the sixth of 7 kids, and so I had awesome siblings around me that were setting great examples. I took time when I was 18 to go on a mission for my church and just serve people in Mexico. So there's all these little stepping stones along the way where it was like, I'm starting to understand who I am and what God needs me to do. And that in turn helped me understand how I wanted to instill that in others, and to give them that same eye-opening experience as to, this connection with maybe a higher power for them that would help bring about those divine qualities in them. So
yeah, I love that. And I think it's real important for people to hear too, that your purpose is not always some lightning strike moment. There doesn't always have to be a burning bush. Sometimes it happens over time, and there's no one right way. Everybody might go through their path a different way. Some people do get hit by lightning like that. Some people, it is a slow burn over time. Some people, something big happens in their life, like happened to your dad, and that kind of pushes them in another direction. I always tell people, hey, you should be turning inward, finding the things you like, that you're good at, that bring you joy and make you come alive, and then start going in that direction. And if it's going well, keep going. And if it's not, all right, then try another one, and not get focused on this. I have to make the perfect decision or I'm not going to do anything. I think that paralyzes a lot of people, because there is no perfect decision. I like the idea of you make the best right decision you can make right now, and then try and make it even righter. Once you've made it, make it work. And if it doesn't, all right, then let that go and try something else.
And if it doesn't, if it doesn't, and you have to pivot, there might be something to that pivot and the reason why it didn't happen. Like, I wouldn't be where I'm at today had we not been through those financially struggling times. There's some things we're doing today that gave us perspective that we just would not have had. So I tried to see what God was teaching me in those moments where we were pivoting. Things weren't going exactly how we had penciled them out, but that was okay. It didn't feel okay at the time, but we had to have the mentality and the resilience to say, okay, something is supposed to be learned from this, because we felt strongly about this. And so if we felt so strong, there had to have been something. And it can't always be that things just worked out perfectly. Like, if I look at my life, the greatest things that have occurred to me didn't work out perfectly, but they sent me in a different direction that was maybe the next step towards an increase in whatever it was we were seeking after, And so I just feel like in those moments, there might be the nugget of truth, the direction, the eye-opening perspective that you need, that is going to propel you to the thing that you should be doing that you can magnify. So
yeah, never waste time with a failure or what we think is a failure. I couldn't agree more, because you're always learning something, and it may be preparing you for the next thing. My background before I got into radio was mental health counseling. And so, I went back and I got my master's in counseling. I did counseling with children and families, and I did behavior problems, and I did inpatient people that were being brought in by the police, and all these kind of things. And then I moved into radio, and I know a lot of people are like, well, boy, you wasted that master's degree. I'm like, man, I learned so much in how to talk to people that I used in interviewing people on the air. I learned so much on how to think through things and organize my thoughts that I used in organizing a radio show. I mean, you never know how you're going to use the things you've been through. And so, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that. I also wanted to back up just a second, because there may be some people listening that are like, man, these guys are all touchy-feely about Jesus and feelings and joy, and I just want to get my business on track. Man, when I go speak places, I'm speaking to business leaders about purpose and joy, because if you want a business that really does well for the long haul and attracts really good employees and keeps them, then you need to focus on purpose and joy, because otherwise you're churning through people, you're churning through clients, you're churning through vendors, and you're just not enjoying life very much. And you think, oh, I'm just working hard on my business. Yeah, but you could be enjoying it and working hard in your business. It's going to be hard work, but I'm just trying to remind people that maybe have never thought about this before. Man, it's not just touchy-feely. It's how we're wired. And if you can help people get through that, it's huge. You're being a little bit humble in this story of everything you went through, because you have an amazing story of how much you went for it in your business and how much it just totally went wrong, and then how you turned it all around, and the great story of your dad. So is all that in your book, in your new book, The Conquer Code?
Yeah, and the book's not out yet. So if you're listening to this in the next probably 4 to 5 months, it'll be sometime next year when you can find it. But it's all in there. It all touches on each of those steps we took, and the kind of the mountains we were facing, and the climb that it was, and the risks that we took. We took some major risks as a young couple, my wife and I. We built up, saved up enough to go out on our own, which was the ultimate goal. We put a lot of money away for a handful of years until we felt like, okay, now's the time. and then went out and I don't know if you want me to get into some of that or just refer people to the book, but yeah, we took some risks and it was real, and we still continue to take them today. And we understand that that's you have to kind of test, learn, and apply in life, and sometimes those tests teach you an expensive lesson. Sometimes it's the what you need though, and we definitely experienced that.
Yeah. No, I would love for you to tell the story, and don't forget to send me a message when that book comes out so I can tell everybody
Yeah.
that the book's coming out. But yeah, I would love you to take us through just a little bit of that, because I think it'll inspire people who have had some failures in business or are wondering if they should do it. Because I know that you tried to start several things at once and it was rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it was extremely rough. We were young. We had just at the time we had two little girls. We I can't remember how many years into marriage. We've been married now 20 years, but the goal all along, I worked for a few brothers that were very entrepreneurial minded, and I got the bug at a young age and wanted to do that. But I worked for them for a while, learned from them, and started putting away some of what we were making working for them into a savings to ultimately start our own business. And 2007 was when we decided to do that. We felt like we had enough. We felt courageous enough, and we did two investments initially. One was in real estate, and honestly, had we known what was right around the corner in 2008, would have ran the other way. And so that one didn't pan out. But the bigger one, where we invested a lot of cash into it, and most of our time was into a franchise deal. And we were young, like I mentioned, very ambitious, and maybe just not super smart. Maybe there's some dumb decisions in this, but we decided to open up 7 franchises instead of one. There's an opportunity in life to scale things, and we decided to just try to go at it all at once. We wanted to make it work. That felt like the right thing to do. Hindsight's 2020. We should have bought one store, seen how it went, and then build upon that. But we did 7 after the stores opened up, and this was after we built out 7 stores. We were paying lease fees on 7 stores. We hired 7 friends to run those stores. We bought inventory for all those stores. So you can imagine this was a lot of a lot of investment into this. And 3 months after opening it, the franchisor gets shut down by an agency, and we all had to put everything on pause, on hold. And there was a lot of franchises that had been sold in this franchise during a 6-month period of time. I think we kind of tried to go biggest in that and buying that many all at once. And we had all these landlords that we had signed personal guarantees on for 5 years. And so those leases were about $4,000 to $7,000 a month, depending on the location. And all of a sudden we couldn't bring in revenue. We couldn't sell what we were supposed to be selling. I was paying guys without any revenue coming in, and they needed their jobs. They needed to be there. And so cash flow all of a sudden became a reality. Working capital became a reality. And what I found is most things take more money and more time than you anticipate. So just plan on that. But we found ourselves in a world of hurt. And all of a sudden we weren't paying our mortgage. We weren't paying our car payments. My daughter ended up in the hospital. She's 2 months old at the time, spent a week in the hospital. There was a mix up in insurance going from being employed to self-employed, and they wouldn't insure that. And so she had to take medications for 3 years that she was uninsurable for. And so we had all these medical bills stacking up, and it was one thing after another that just really put me into this place of, am I meant to succeed in any kind of way? I had a great job before. Should I just go back and do that? I have a wife that she kept that goal in mind of, like, our goal was to build a business that we could support people, whether that was our employees, our family, or something on the side where we found something we could contribute to. And she just said, we're not gonna give up on that dream. We might need a pivot, and we might need to learn what we are learning from this and apply it to the next and just figure things out. So she helped me start some other businesses. And in total, we started about 6 businesses before one finally started to take off. And so just one thing after another, and going into debt, using credit cards, and not paying our mortgage, we were in a world of hurt. And with little kids, really, they didn't care. They didn't know. They just wanted our time and attention. They wanted me to come home, and they'd sing "I'm so glad when Daddy comes home," all that kind of stuff. And but there's a dad that had the weight of the world on his shoulder, and I felt like I wasn't able to give them the time and attention that they needed. And I'm a very intentional individual with my wife and my children. I wanted to give them valuable time, attention, experiences in life. They really didn't care. They just wanted my time. It was all. They didn't need to have all the fancy things. They were too young to understand that at the time. But food was something that I just struggled with. My wife and I both just, we've got to feed them. They've got to have those simple things. And oftentimes our pantry was empty, and my ego was in the way. I didn't want to tell my family, my siblings, my parents that we were struggling. We had just built this business, and within 3 months it was shutting down. Like it was shut down quicker than had gone up. And so I was letting ego get in the way. Didn't want to talk to neighbors about it. Wanted them to think that I was succeeding in the things that I was doing. So we just tried one thing after another. It became very transactional. And I'm not a transactional business leader. I'm a mission driven, principle based business leader. I have to have a mission. I have to have a purpose that we've talked about. And I started to realize as the bank account, was draining down to zero, my desire to just find transactions was going up because I needed to replace what we were losing. And I was losing myself in that whole process, in that whole transaction. And so that's when my father came into play. At this very time, he was having these heart issues and had the stents put in his heart. And I just happened to come across this book called No More Heart Disease. And it typically wasn't the type of book I'd read. I like, self-help, improvement, faith-based books, that type of thing. But this was more science-based. Talked about a molecule called nitric oxide. I wouldn't normally dive into that, but because of what was happening with my father, I thought this might be interesting. I'm looking for my next business failure. I was looking for the next move. And I read this book, took the book to a chemist, asked him to help me create a product that would bring some circulation benefits to my father. And we put my father on the concoction he helped me create. And within 3 days, he started to feel his fingers and toes again. And just a tingling sensation at first, and then it kind of got improved over time. And so I knew I was onto something, but I had no resources to put behind this. So I went to my brothers and asked if they would invest in this product opportunity with me. And they invested enough to help me buy 350 bottles from the manufacturer. The manufacturer worked with me. That's not typically a run size they would do, but they kind of understood where I was coming from and understood the passion I had for helping my father and him being the purpose behind it all. And had some people come together to help me get that off the ground. And I just started to do everything, building websites, designing labels, shipping the product, the orders that came through, taking customer service calls, which was very beneficial for me because I started to learn all aspects of business and what it took and what needed to be true in certain realms of the business to see things succeed. And so as I've now built a bigger business, I understand each aspect, not in great detail now because it's grown to a capacity that I wasn't a part of, but I did things in the business that every individual here is doing now. And so I can empathize with them. I understand, and I can also hold people accountable to what needs to happen. And that's when we started to see a little bit of success where this product we had created for my father started to sell, and it started to sell through doctors' offices. Actually, it was a chiropractor that bought the first, I think it was 12 bottles on our website. And without trying to act excited about that, I called him up the next day and didn't want him to know it was the first order, but thanked him for the order, asked him why he was buying it, and he needed it for his patients that had blood pressure and neuropathy issues, the exact reasons why I built it for my father. And so instead of trying to be this online sensation in the supplement world, I just started knocking doors. I started going to every chiropractic office I could. And so sometimes, you just got to get into the weeds, into the trenches, and you got to start knocking doors. And that's what we had to do. It was, we had to do anything we could to get the word spread about this product. And that's how it initially started. And then 4 years later, as that business was growing, things were going a little bit better for my family. Food was still kind of the topic of conversation. We've got to put some good things in the pantry for these kids. It was just the bare necessities. We even started to crack our own wheat. We had a food storage that we had set up during financially good times that we thought we'd use for a natural disaster. We ended up using it for our personal disaster. And so fortunately we had that food that we had been encouraged by some ecclesiastical leaders to put in place. And we now knew why we had it and we needed it. But there was an opportunity that we found, and this is where MTN OPS comes into play, where I was working with some marketers and they were doing some marketing for that business of ours. And they were telling me about all the marketing they were doing in the hunting space. And I just said, is there a place for supplements within hunting? And their eyes went wide and they said, yes, there's this huge hunter athlete movement. This is in 2014 now. And there's no real consumable brand going after this customer. It's the hunting space is a little bit behind the times as far as mainstream media and product and everything. And these were individuals that didn't shop in GNC, didn't go to Gold's Gym, they work out in God's gym, and there was no consumable product that was leading the way for this hunter athlete movement. But I had been selling these products and creating them for the last 4.5 years now, so I had a really good grasp on what would work and how it could apply now to these individuals that were out in the mountains for long periods of time. But during their workday as well, they needed increased energy and stamina, and that's what my products did. And so I partnered with those individuals that were doing marketing in the hunting industry, and the Mountain Ops brand was born. And the mountains representing the playground we have to play here in Utah, but also more importantly, the mountains we face in life, and the ops is outdoor performance supplements, and utilizing those supplements to help us conquer those mountains. And our whole mantra is to conquer more, and to help people understand that through systems, through processes, and through products and a community that comes together, we can help each other conquer more in life. And so that's how Mountain Ops came to be. Initially, my father being the inspiration with that first product, and then it growing and growing through these doctors' offices until it now has expanded into the outdoor space, where we sell most of our product online through mountainops.com, but we also sell through, Cabela's, Shields, Bass Pro Shops, Sportsman's Warehouses, all the farm and fleet type stores that are out there. You'd find us there as well, and through Amazon. And it's become an incredible business that's providing a great supplement for those that are needing some health and wellness. But then there's our Operation Conquer Hunger that we do to help in the community with children and families that are in need as well.
It's a great story. I mean, I love just the whole thing, from highs to lows to back up to purpose and everything in between. I love how you said you had 6 different businesses. So,
yeah,
it should be encouraging to people that have had multiple business opportunities not go the way they planned, that doesn't mean you're done. You're not done until you decide you're done. And who knows what's around the next corner. And most people who have successful businesses, I would say the vast majority, it is not their first business venture.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely does somebody try something and it's just up and to the right. And I think sometimes if you've never done it before, you think that's how it's supposed to go. So if it doesn't go perfectly, you're like, man, I stink. It must be me. I'm not good at this, like you were feeling. And
it's easy to feel that way.
Yeah, you just haven't done it enough yet, right? It's like the first time you try to hit a baseball. Most of us missed it a lot of times before we started hitting it. I mean, man, that sport, if you hit it 3 out of 10 times, well, you're still a Hall of Famer. So it takes a lot to do some of these things. And I loved how you talked about overtime too, working really hard, and your kids just wanted you home. And I heard this the other day and I loved it. It said, the only people who care about how much overtime you put in are your kids. And so you think it's so important, and obviously we got to provide for our families. We got to work hard, but there's a difference between working hard and working so much that your family doesn't know who you are anymore. And they're the ones who are going to notice that if you don't get that priority right. So I love all that. So
no amount of success can compensate for failure in the home, right? So
absolutely.
It's so true. That time and attention is what they want, what they deserve, what they need. And so, you've got to find a balance where, I don't think there's work-life balance. I don't know if it exists. I haven't found it, but I feel like there is intentionality within the time that you're committing to at work and at home and at play, whatever it is. And giving that, when you're in that realm, giving that the time and the space that it deserves and requires, especially when there's individuals that matter more than anything else involved. You've got to prioritize it.
And it's so hard, like you said, if you're in the business and you're just starting it out and it consumes you. And so even when you're with your family, you may be thinking about your business and what you've got to do next. And then you're not really there. And that's why I do appreciate the people that are trying to teach how to be in the moment, how to be in the present, how to focus on where you are. And I do think there's great value in that when you're at work, be at work, and when you're at home, be at home. Otherwise, you're not in either place, and it's going to drive you crazy. There's all kinds of research on that too, where if your mind is in a different place than where your body is, it creates anxiety, it creates depression, it creates fatigue. It does all kinds of things to you compared to being focused on where you are and just having the time
Yeah.
for that.
So
Yeah, it's
good.
good.
I
Hey,
agree.
let me ask you about, as you're going through, you mentioned that you like to read and you read a lot of self-improvement books, business books, leadership books. What are 3 books you would recommend to help people who are on their quest to find their purpose and change their life?
Cool. Yeah. 3 that I love, and I've got a shelf full over here. We actually do a book club at Mountain Ops every quarter. There's a new book, which I can read a lot more in one quarter. But I know you and I had this conversation while we were there in North Dakota together. Sometimes you read the book and then you're on to the next book. It's like, what did I read in the last? So learning how to apply that, and that's what we're focused on here at Mountain Ops, is taking some time in one piece of literature and really applying it, so that we can build up habits. But there's one called I Dare You. I'm gonna forget the author. I've got a stack of them here. It's an old William Danforth? Old book, I Dare You. And it's a quick and simple read. But it's one that a couple years ago I asked an author friend of mine, hey, what's a good book on goal setting that I can use to kick off the year with my team? And he quickly said, I Dare You. And so at the beginning of this book, William Danforth actually says, I dare you to read this today, like finish it today. So I ran a little extra. I was actually running at the time when I was talking to this friend of mine. So I just bought it on Audible and I listened to it and I just kept running and running and running until I was done. So it's a smaller book, but it breaks out life into spiritual, physical, mental, and social. And those are the quadrants of our Conquer More challenge at Mountain Ops that we run within our team for our culture. We focus on goal setting in each of those. And then we actually take that out to our community and help them set goals and build upon those. And part of that is recognizing the good that you're doing in those quadrants before even saying, okay, what am I going to do next? It's like, hey, first you gotta pat yourself on the back. You gotta recognize the good. You gotta see the divine qualities within each of those, and then build upon them. And this book talks to the team. We've been running this Conquer More program, focusing on those quadrants of life for, I don't know, 6 years before I read this book. And then when I read it, I was like, this is speaking to our Conquer More. And I feel like our Conquer More challenge within our company here helps bring about like people's purpose in certain realms of life. So I would say that one. Good, quick and easy read. Essentialism by Greg McEwen. I love that book because I feel like just what we're talking about, time and attention. I think that we can become distracted by so many things. There's so much that we could do, but should we do it? And there's a segment in there where it talks about what is it? Priorities used to just be singular, and it was just priority. And then the world has added it, has created as a plural word now, but it really was just the one thing. And when it all began, there was just one priority. And for me, I look at my life and there's just one thing, and that is my relationship with God. And if I can break it down to just that, and I can understand what God would have me do and remove all the excess, and I focus on essentialism, and even within my business, just remove the excess. What is it that we need to do? Not should we do, because we can do a lot. And it's easy in an organization that has a cool brand, cool product, to have shiny object syndrome. We can go after so many things, but we've worked on that as a team. Just let's remove all the clutter, all the excess, and let's focus in on the essentials. And sometimes I feel like that's what allows us as individuals to find our purpose. Remove a lot of the junk, find out who you are, what your passions are, what you like, what your gifts are, and then apply those in a very essential way. And then the last one, and probably my favorite, is How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. And we actually have a team member present every single week here at Mountain Ops their How I Conquer journey, how they have conquered in life, what they've learned as a child, the mountains they've faced, the things they've done to overcome those mountains or challenges. And then ultimately, how will they measure their life? What do they want to be remembered for? What is the legacy they're leaving behind? And I think that if you can look at your life, look at the people in your life, how at the end do you want to be remembered? What is the legacy you want to leave behind, and how will you measure it? I think it's super important for us to break down and to understand, because then we can take directional steps towards that measurement that we hope to achieve. And for me, a lot of that comes down to relationships more than anything. And it's a relationship with God. I will measure my life based off of my relationship with Him. I will measure my life based off of the quality time and attention that I gave my children, and how I was able to bring about the divine qualities in them, and how I was able to connect them to my priority as well, allowing them to have hopefully the same priority in their life. Because at some point I won't be here. I just lost my father a few months back. He had a tragic fall, and this whole business was based around him, and I'm carrying forward what it was based on and who it was based on, and I get to talk about him often when I go and speak at events or whatnot. And in the end, like, these relationships are what matters most to me, and it's what he taught me, and now what I feel is true, and now what I want to leave to my children, because I won't always be there for them, but there is someone that always will. And that, if I can instill that in them, that's confidence, that's peace in the moment. Living in that moment that you just talked about is so important. And if I can feel that in each of the moments of life, no matter what the distractions or clutter or whatever it is, then I feel like I'm measuring my life in the right way. So those are three. Sorry if I
Yeah.
expounded upon them too much, but three that I really enjoy.
Love it. Always love hearing about new stuff. I Dare You by William Danforth. Never read that one. Essentialism. I love that one. I need to go read it again now that you mentioned it. And then How Will You Measure Your Life? I'm looking forward to that. Sound like some great books. I'm going to put the links to those all in the show notes for anybody who's interested in picking them up. And yeah, I just wanted to repeat what we said earlier. That there are some people that love to read so much that they never implement anything they read, and they're on to the next book. And let's face it, it's easier to read the book than it is to do the stuff
Then to
in the book, right?
apply.
So
Yep.
sometimes we're like, I can't figure out why my life's not getting any better. I've read all these great books. They have to actually do the stuff that's in the book. So yeah, I would recommend slowing the reading and doing more of the action, and you will see quite a bit of things happen. I mean, that half of my book, that's an exaggeration. A lot of my book, I will stop and say, hey, put the book down now and do this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why are you reading it? Because it's just, it doesn't happen by accident. And our generation doesn't do this, but man, so many young kids I talk to, they just think it's going to come. They just think it's going to happen. And if you have to work hard, then it must not be the right thing. And I'm like, bro, everything that is good is going to take hard work, even if you're gifted at. You think LeBron James doesn't work hard at basketball? He didn't just wake up playing basketball, but it looks like that because you're seeing this finished product. And that's why I tell people who are starting with business, you can't compare yourself. You mentioned comparison earlier. You can't compare yourself as a brand new business person to somebody who's been doing it for 30 years and say, oh, I'm not as good as he is. Well, of course you're not. You've been doing it for 5 minutes, so I would just encourage people on that too.
100%. That's good.
And what's a lesson that you've learned that you think everyone should know?
Wow, just one, huh?
You can have more than one.
Oh, you know what? There's a lot, but two, I'll say, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And so those perspective moments that you gain in life, they could be good, they could be bad. There could be struggles, there could be achievements, but there's somebody walking in shoes that you've once walked in. And there is something very powerful about having gained some perspective that you can then turn back around and find that person and lend a hand. They rise highest who lift as they go. And so as you're going and you want to rise high, like, make sure to turn back around. And with our Operation Conquer Hunger, we're donating meals to children in need. For every order that comes through our site, we've donated over 5 million meals. And it started with having experienced the need of food. My wife and I, when we went through those financially struggling times, we experienced hunger. And there's a Bible verse about Jesus taking a few loaves and a few fishes, and he multiplied them for the masses. Well, when we were going through that, we asked God, what are we supposed to be learning from this? We're hungry. This is hard. And that scripture stood out time and time again. And so we made a commitment to each other that as soon as we had a few loaves and a few fishes, not when the boat came in full, because we didn't know if it would or when it would, but as soon as we had a few loaves and a few fishes, a few resources, if you will, we would take those and we would try to multiply them. It wasn't for the masses. What God's teaching you, and you're most powerfully positioned to now serve that person that is in the shoes you were once in. And then On top of that, I would say let time do the hard work. You can have all the talent in the world, you can have all the resources in the world, but sometimes that doesn't matter. You just need to put in the time. And I feel like a mission driven individual has the ability to endure the test of time. And so with that, as you're going about your day-to-day grind and you're trying to see things happen, it's just not clicking. Like, try to see in the moment how you gain perspective, and let those moments not pass you by, but take the opportunity to allow time to do the hard work and to learn from it. And like you said earlier, anything good is going to take time. It's going to take effort. I do believe God can move mountains, but I think he expects us to bring a shovel, and sometimes that shovel needs to be big, and sometimes you need to recruit other shovelers to come in and help you, and then it's amazing what God does to help you move that mountain that's in your way. But it comes in the form of hard work at times, and you just need to let time play a role.
Yeah. So help people on your way up, turn around and help people, especially people that are going through what you've been through and you know how to do it. And then let time do its work and realize it's going to take time. Those are great. I remember somebody was telling me they were talking to their daughter, and their daughter wanted to be a doctor. And the daughter said, Mom, I don't think I'm going to do this. I mean, to do everything I would need to do to be the type of doctor I want to be, I wouldn't be a doctor till I was 29. And her mom goes, you're going to turn 29 no matter what. So why not be a doctor when you turn 29?
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good. Like you said, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the time's going to go by. What are you going to do with that time? And that's how you can use time to your advantage. So that's awesome. And I love what you're doing with feeding people. And what a great thing that, like you said, that God didn't waste that time while you're hungry, excuse me. He used it to motivate you guys to do some amazing things to help even more people who are hungry. So that's fantastic. Do you have a favorite productivity hack for entrepreneurs?
I was thinking this morning as I jumped into the cold shower that I often take on on a regular basis. It's one of my goals to take 4 to 5 cold showers in the morning. I mean, that right there is one. I mean, you don't waste a lot of time. You you get in, you get out, and honestly, it kind of wakes my brain up. But you talked about being present earlier, and mindfulness. I do. I think I can't remember the name of the song, but there is a song and it's just instrumental that when I need to go into a different zone, I put the earphones on, and not these ones. We actually have for the team, I'll show you right here. When we brought everyone back after COVID and we said, hey, no more, it's actually a hybrid schedule. Monday and Friday are at home, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday here at the office. And everyone was like, I'm going to be so distracted with everyone in the office. How do I get stuff done? How am I going to be productive? We went out to Skull Candy and we bought these for everyone, and not necessarily that they would use them all day long for everything, but if somebody is in the office wearing these, you leave them alone. That's they're in the zone. And so this is one hack that we've used as we've come back together, because a lot of companies have been apart, now they're coming back together. A lot of social aspect. It's like, I was getting so much done in a short amount of time when I was at home by myself. But there is that element of connection you need to bring back, and that's what we're doing here at Mountain Ops. And so we got everyone these. That's a little hack we've given for the team. Put these on. But usually when I put these on, the team knows I'm in the zone. I've got to work on something that's productive. But this song, I think it's called Polaroid, but there's no words. It's just this. It's like to get me in this mindset. In fact, when I was writing my book, I would turn that song on and repeat. And I just found for me, having that on, I could just go to town. It would help me focus in the zone. And then putting these on allows other people to know, hey, I'm working on something I need to stay productive on. So maybe that with a little cold shower.
That's a great one. I mean, when you and I were at our event not too long ago, and I was talking about concentrated focus time, that's exactly what I was talking about. And that is one of my tips too. I'm right there with you. When you put the headphones in, 99% of people are going to leave you alone. There's that one guy that'll come by and tap you on the shoulder, but most people realize, okay, he's either on a Zoom meeting or he's doing some really deep work. I should just leave him alone. It's a great, great hack. Love it.
That's funny. Right. Yeah, I remember that part of your presentation with, I think it was Bob coming over, right? And interacting and distracting everyone. So yeah, no, it's appreciated your counsel in that regard as well.
Yeah, everybody's got a Bob. You just got to try to work with them for sure. Hey, give us where you would like people go to find out more about you, more about Mountain Ops, and I'll get it on the show notes too. But tell us where to go to find you.
Yeah, I mean, on my own social media, it's just my name, Trevor Farnes, and on LinkedIn as well, Trevor Farnes. I usually post on a regular basis through Instagram, which then gets sent over to Facebook. But and then our company, Mountain Ops, MTNOPS.com, or that same MTN OPS is our social media handle as well that you can find us on. And yeah, check us out. We've got some exciting things in the works, especially in November. We usually do a lot around our Operation Conquer Hunger and obviously Black Friday sales and stuff like that. I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but we've got great content that's thrown out there and really good added value. If people want some wellness tips or whatnot, there's nutrition and fitness routines that are just free added value for people. If they want to have a little more direction for their wellness in life, then they can come and find us there and find some really good good tips and tricks. So
Fantastic. I'm going to put all that in the show notes. And I was going to ask, oh yeah, I'm guessing that on the social media, you will announce when your book's coming out and where to get it and all that in
yeah,
a few months,
yep,
right?
yep. We'll be doing that for sure. So
Well, hey man, I appreciate the time. It's great to get to know you a little bit more. Love your story. And
likewise.
thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it a ton. This has been fantastic.